Hey, what's going on, everyone? This is Mitch. Good Friday morning to you all. I hope you guys are doing well out there this morning and having a wonderful start to your day. And I hope everyone's been having a great week out there as we're heading off into our weekend. I know I'm pretty happy about that. I'm sure most of you are also. But here to talk about the weather, we'll speak on today's weather first, current conditions, latest outlooks, and then we'll break down the country section by section. We'll zoom into a couple areas that just have the higher risk of more high impact weather for today. After we get done doing that, we'll discuss the pattern to come. We'll continue to get very detailed on that because it will continue to be active. Just a lot of activity out there. But when I say active, just remember, and I've been saying this over the last couple weeks, that doesn't necessarily mean significant severe weather or outbreaks, I would say. I don't want to get things twisted there or anything like that. But many areas of the country will just have a risk of showers and storms every single afternoon. Some mornings you'll wake up to it, and just a very stormy pattern across the lower 48 pretty much for the foreseeable future. So we'll speak on that, what's driving everything, and then we'll let you guys get on with the rest of your day. If you guys have not subscribed, certainly consider doing that. Like the video if you like it. And if anybody has anything that I can pray about or pray over, as always, please put it in the comments below. At the very end of the video, I do got you guys a Bible devotion if you're interested in that. So let's get rocking and rolling. So we're waking up to a lot of activity. I mean, we got this spin still plaguing areas of the country across like the central and east central U.S., Missouri, Illinois, areas of the mid and deep south. This is just an area of lower pressure. Like I said, it's what we call a shortwave trough. You can call it an upper trough, upper low, just an area of lower pressure. And basically, this thing is just trapped in a ridge of high pressure. So it just doesn't have a lot of push in the atmosphere there isn't a lot of push in the atmosphere to sort of move this thing in and out. So it's just been hanging with us. So if you're wondering, in Texas, Oklahoma, Arkansas, Louisiana, Missouri, and all these places, why it's been raining so much, it's because of this feature. And we'll talk more on it here in a bit. But we do got flow on top of this area. So we got a lot of rain up here in areas of the upper Midwest, Minnesota, Wisconsin, waking up to some downpours across the Carolinas, waking up to even some severe weather across southern areas of Louisiana, flash flood warnings also, and some flow drifting across the Pacific Northwest and the Northern Rockies. So that's current conditions. The latest watches, warnings, and advisories, flood watches, continue for areas of the Texas and Louisiana coastline, points a little bit inland. We got flood watches up for the mid-Atlantic also in areas of the Tidewater, Delmarva. We're expecting a couple inches of rain over the next 36 hours up in this region. So we'll speak on that and zoom into that area here in a second. Some dense fog out there. We got some red flag warnings across Nevada and areas of California. Some heat advisories across extreme sections of western Texas. Outside of that, nothing too crazy in the way of watches, warnings, and advisories. The updated information from the Storm Prediction Center, we do have a slight risk for portions of Wyoming, portions of Colorado. This gets into a larger area of Nebraska and South Dakota. We'll zoom into this area when we get to that section of the country. Marginal risk does extend all the way down to the central and southern high plains into Colorado and New Mexico and sections of Texas and extreme western areas of Oklahoma. Very small baby marginal risk down here and deep in the southern parts of Texas. But I want you to notice, and I keep saying this, the light green areas, you guys could get severe weather also. I mean, there is going to be numerous thunderstorms across the southeast today. We'll speak on that here in a second. But the risk of the higher risk of severe weather is definitely going to be centered over areas of the plains and Midwest. So the tornado threat, not very high. Listen, we're getting deeper into the warmer months. It's getting deeper into June, mid-June. So the jet stream on average begins to shift north. That means that your risk of severe weather, higher chances of severe weather, begins to shift north. Now, just because the jet shifts north, that doesn't mean you're not going to get showers and storms to the south. I mean, typically when we get later in the summer, well, I wouldn't say later in the summer, just more so into the summer months, a lot of your shower and storm activity for the south is driven off little weak upper features or either just heat and instability. Even you can be trapped right under high pressure where you're not getting hardly any push in the atmosphere, but just how hot and humid it gets in the afternoon hours can just cause these pop-up showers and storms, pop-up outflow boundaries, and those outflow boundaries, rain, cold air, forms more storms. So Just want to throw that out there. But there is a 2% risk of a tornado here in portions of the high plains. This does include areas of western Nebraska, eastern Wyoming, and a very small section of South Dakota. The wind threat pretty much covers the entirety of this slight risk area. There's a 15% risk of winds exceeding 55 to 60 miles per hour. And the hail threat, it shifts a little bit to the north, especially in Wyoming. But in that area in yellow, you do have a 15% risk of hail exceeding 1 inch in diameter or larger within 25 miles in a given location. Now we continue to move forward here and we look at the flash flooding threat. There's multiple little areas to watch. First off, the green area, that is a 5% risk of flash flooding occurring. So even in the 5% risk areas, we can get ponding on the roadways and certainly flash flooding, especially with these storms just pop up and just have a hard time moving around, and it just rains on your area for 45 minutes. And if you're getting torrential downpours over your same area for 30 to 45 minutes, you can pick up a quick 2 to 3 inches of rain in the summer. But we got to watch out for the mid-Atlantic, 15% risk of flash flooding. Areas in the Midwest, Missouri, and Illinois. Another area down here in areas of the deep and mid-South into Arkansas. And then there is an area to watch out for Houston and Beaumont again. Now, there was actually some fatalities. I believe it was in San Antonio for flash flooding yesterday. I believe 5 people died. And that's awful. That's awful. So, that just goes to show you that you got to keep this flash flooding threat serious. You get an inch of rain in 10 minutes. Doesn't sound like a lot right off the top of your head if you think about it, but that is a lot of rain in 10 minutes. So, anyways, just be aware of this flash flooding threat today, guys. Update on the tropics. There's no tropical activity expected between now and the next 7 days, so there's not really anything to talk about. I went over all model guidance this morning before I pulled this up, seeing if I needed to provide a more detailed update on the tropics, and I don't, because there's nothing really showing up. So it continues to be a pretty quiet start. A lot of times we take the first name, the A name. Andrea is the first name, but there's no signs of doing that in June, to be honest with you, and I don't think we are. But that could change. That could definitely change. But an update on the southeast. I'm not going to zoom into really any areas much, but what you're going to see here is we start off this morning, we take it to the afternoon hours. You're going to just see pop-up activity everywhere. Now, I know this is kind of small on your screen, but I can get detailed about every single state, but the video would drag on forever. But you can see a more organized area of showers and storms here in western and central and middle areas of Tennessee, and then Mississippi down to Louisiana, but just more so pop-up activity across Georgia, the Carolinas. But this pop-up activity will definitely be more numerous in nature today across the Carolinas. Widespread thunderstorms. We get thunderstorms in Florida. Maybe not as widespread in Georgia, but we'll certainly see. But listen, today is a tough day. Today, I think, is a classic example in the Southeast where just ignore your hourly forecast. You try to ask a professional, when is it going to rain today? I get asked that all the time. It's just one of those days where it's impossible to tell you. You're going to get outflow boundaries. They'll pop up storms right on top of you. So, if your weather app says there's anywhere from a 40 to 80% chance of rain, just know that there is a solid chance at least a storm is going to be close by you today. So definitely just the only area I would say you're going to get a more organized area of storms, a little bit more easier to, I would say, forecast is this kind of sweeping line of storms. This is getting into like 6, 7 o'clock tonight. So this will sweep across areas of the deep south, again into eastern sections of Tennessee, and eventually into northern Georgia late tonight. So maybe more of an organized area of storms there. But I do want to just kind of zoom into Alabama and Mississippi as far as rainfall. This is predicted rainfall off the Weather Prediction Center between now and 7 p.m. tomorrow night, 36 hours or so. So a good bit of rain could fall, especially in areas of Mississippi, as you can tell. So, and I will take just a closer look at, say, Georgia and South Carolina. My neck of the woods here in Columbia, we could get over an inch of rain between now and tomorrow night. So a good bit of rain could fall. And I will take it also up into Kentucky and Tennessee. I'll show more North Carolina points north here in a second. But more rain for the western areas of Kentucky and Tennessee for sure. But still a lot of rain elsewhere also. So we get into the Northeast. Same thing. Not going to zoom into a lot of places, but it's kind of a similar setup to our friends to the south here. Widespread thunderstorms. This is 5, 6 o'clock this afternoon to this evening. We got widespread thunderstorms developing across areas of western Maryland, PA, West Virginia, areas of Virginia itself. And then we got more of just, I would say just light to moderate rain with embedded areas of heavy rain kind of in northern areas of Ohio. More organized area storms, as you can tell down there at the bottom portion of your screen, in areas of eastern Kentucky. But I really want to say watch out for more organized convection. The HRRR model is not really showing it very well, I don't think, but we're probably going to get a lot of heavy rain in areas of the mid-Atlantic throughout the next 24 hours for sure, and just widespread showers. And once again, I saw a statistic where you guys have had, I think it was out of Maine though, there has been, I think every single Saturday in Maine since like March has featured clouds and rain. And I don't think tomorrow is going to be any different, unfortunately. We're going to wake up to a lot of rain, as you can tell, in northern Ohio, really anywhere in PA, southern tier of New York. And then you're waking up to showers across Vermont, New Hampshire, northern areas of New York, and just a lot of shower activity. Might not be a washout, but like tomorrow afternoon, for example, a lot of shower and storm activity across lower sections of New England and then getting into the mid-Atlantic. So rainfall between now and the next 36 hours. Here's in North Carolina. I should have showed that in the southeast frame, but it always kind of only includes North Carolina and Virginia in these panels for whatever reason. But you get up towards Richmond, Charlottesville, inch to 2 to 2.5 inches of rain. And just taking a kind of a closer look at this area, DC down to Fredericksburg, down into the Tidewater, 1 to as much as 3 inches of rain is possible over the next 36 hours. And then just kind of taking a look at the entire Northeast. Rainfall between now and 8 p.m. tomorrow night. Good bit of rain is possible, especially the further southwest you get. So just be aware of that. South Central U.S., a couple areas we'll zoom into, and hopefully I don't forget anybody here on the fly. We take it to about midday. First off, you see organized convection, once again, from Corpus Christi up to Houston, up to Beaumont. So we're going to get a lot of storm activity down here into southwest Louisiana. And then we just got a lot of shower and storm activity sort of spinning around here in areas of Arkansas, Missouri. This is associated. You guys are directly kind of, if you will, up under the lower pressure of this upper trough as this thing. You can literally see the spin on the map as I move this back and forth. But we get into this evening, maybe some stronger cells begin to develop in western areas of Texas, Colorado, especially northeastern areas of the state. And we'll just have to watch an area of organized storms that kind of drifts out of Nebraska into areas of central Kansas late tonight into tomorrow morning. I wouldn't be surprised if they actually extend the severe weather risk more into Kansas because of this. But, not going to zoom in much to individual areas. I will zoom into Arkansas as far as how much rain you could get between now and 7 p.m. Been very rainy in this area. This does include Memphis, like 2.5 inches, Little Rock, 1.5 inches. And I will show you guys Missouri also. I could see more rain than this falling in certain areas in Missouri, but there's a sharp cutoff right in here. And then, let's just take a look at like the Houston area also. You guys don't need any more rain down here, but this is how much rain you could get between now and tomorrow night. And let's just go on and take a look at, say, Louisiana too. Might as well while we're at it. And most of the state of Louisiana will receive some sort of rainfall. Somebody could get maybe just a little bit, some sprinkles, and then others could get 2 to 3 inches of rain. Just the kind of setup we're dealing with. And I will include Colorado. Typically, I include Colorado in the south central frame. It's always kind of a borderline state. Do I include them in the western U.S., the north central U.S., or the south central U.S.? I try to keep them in the south central U.S. One of these days, I need to do a poll of that kind of stuff. Where do I need to put states in certain areas so you guys don't get confused? But this is 6 p.m., 7 p.m., 8 p.m. You see the storms up here near Sterling, northeast Colorado. These could become severe. I mean, there is a slight risk, I believe, that gets into northeast Colorado. So we could get a sneaky tornado in northeast Colorado today. Large hail and some gusty, strong winds is certainly possible. You see how those storms really intensify. 9 p.m., see the circle area coming off these storms indicating more intense, stronger updrafts. So be aware of that. Right as the sun is setting up here in northeast Colorado today, some big-time storms. North central U.S., once again, just widespread rain. We take it to about midday. Big chunk of moisture heading into northern areas of Wisconsin, sneaking into the UP of Michigan, still raining back in Minnesota. We got a lot of shower and storm activity down here in Illinois, Indiana. Just a rainy afternoon. We stop it. This is like, 6, 7 p.m. this afternoon, this evening. Storms are possible down here spinning around in Illinois, anywhere in the state. More just solid light to moderate rainfall in areas of the UP in the northern lower Michigan and southern lower Michigan. For example, in Detroit, some light to moderate rain could move into your area. We could get a stronger severe storm that tries to develop in southern areas of Minnesota. And then we keep this going and just dealing with heavy rain overnight in areas of Illinois and northern Indiana. Heavier rain setting up around Detroit also. And then we got some action that you can see out to the west, and I'm about to zoom into that for you folks. And here we go. I want to talk about Wyoming. We could get some storms. Gillette, Torrington, very isolated to scatter. Not everybody's going to get rain from this. This is 5 p.m. Any of those cells you see on your screen, they could produce all hazards, honestly. I mean, these storms look to get pretty intense here in northeast Wyoming. And, I mean, check it out. I mean, these look like some supercells trying to organize maybe a bit of a tornado threat with these. 7 p.m., 8 p.m., 9 p.m. This is one area of the country I've always wanted to chase. Of course, I would love to chase in Oklahoma and Kansas and stuff, but I've always wanted to chase in the open areas of Montana, Wyoming, and maybe the western Dakotas. So maybe one of these days I'll get out there. But anyways, continue to move forward. It begins to simmer on down later this evening. Now, taking it into Nebraska, got to watch the western areas of the state. Scottsbluff, some storms. 6, 7 p.m. Chadron, however way y'all pronounce it, some storms, 6, 7, 8 p.m. And these look like they could develop into what we call an MCS, mesoscale convective system. And if they do, the damaging wind threat will likely increase, but there could be embedded spin-ups of these two and some large hail. But 9 p.m., 10 p.m., outflow boundary looks to shoot out ahead of these. But I mentioned in Colorado, just be careful with these storms in northeast Colorado, southwest Nebraska. But 11 p.m., midnight, some storms could blast through McCook, North Platte. Storms will try to, you can quite literally see the outflow being indicated by the HER model here. That is an outflow pushing out ahead of the storms, and this will kind of drive this. And this is why I think they could increase the severe weather threat down into western sections of Kansas. Colby could get some storms 2, 3 o'clock in the morning, and some scattered convection. That's possible in like central Nebraska, but it looks like it begins to calm down. The energy looks to almost shift around kind of an axis of a ridge down to the south after this. South Dakota, we take it to this evening. This is 8 p.m., 9 p.m. Watch out, Rapid City, southwestern areas of South Dakota. Storms could kind of hang around the western areas of the state, cruise across the southern sections, the southern counties of South Dakota. And just as we get into the overnight hours, maybe some dancing showers and storms will try to survive as they make the long track across South Dakota. And then Minnesota, the only area I would watch is the southern areas, as you can tell. Mankato, I think is how you pronounce it. 5 p.m. It shows a couple intense cells around this area. So I would watch like into this region here. Could get 1 or 2 strong cells later this afternoon to this evening, and they could definitely pack a punch. Rainfall, though, this is really for what's happening now into later this afternoon. But a lot of rain will continue to add up in this area of central Minnesota. And that red area, I mean, that's over 2 inches of rain, folks. I mean, look, in northern areas of Wisconsin, also 1 to 3 inches of rain possible. And no, that's not what I want to do. I will dive down into Illinois and Indiana. A lot of rain could fall into the southern areas of these states, too. And it could begin to add up tomorrow morning in northern areas of Indiana also, maybe more than what this is showing. But this is between now and 7 p.m. tomorrow night. A lot of rain on the way, guys. Just a rainy pattern, like I said in the beginning of the video. Western U.S. Some storms will become widespread for our friends here in Montana. We've already kind of spoke on Wyoming, but Montana, a lot of storm activity, as you can tell up here. Maybe some supercells try to get going. But that's really the only area I would watch for. It's literally riding on top of the ridge and starting to sag back down to the southeast from the northwest. And just taking a closer look. Look how these things pop up, kind of right on top of the ridge. I'm telling you, watch out in central Montana. Sneaky higher end severe weather threat up here, maybe. but these cells could pack a punch. So if you live in central Montana, be careful with these storms. Look at this intense one south of Miles City and east of Billings. And, north of Billings shows a pretty intense cluster of storms up here. You see the line coming off this. These storms could produce large hail, maybe a spin up, some damaging winds, and then they do begin to weaken. Could get an additional stronger severe cell that kind of forms later tonight. But yeah, just be aware in Montana today. But temperatures, nice warming all the way into the mid-Atlantic, the southern New England area, southeast, typical hot, humid conditions. The actual surface temperatures themselves, not overly hot. I've heard a lot of complaints about Mitch. When are we going to be able to swim in the southeast? It's a good question. What's happening is every time we get to 1 to 2 o'clock in the afternoon here in the southeast lately, we get thunderstorms that form. So these pools, typically this time of year, are starting to, whether you have an above ground pool or in-ground pool, whatever it may be, a pond, a lake, typically they're starting to warm well into the low 80s by this time of the year. And a lot of pools are just struggling to really warm up. So, we're getting into mid-June. That shouldn't be the case, but it's just daily afternoon showers and storms keep cooling everything off. And you would think it would take a lot for it to warm or cool down these little smaller bodies of water, but it really don't take a lot. I mean, especially, some of the smaller pools. But hopefully, I'm telling you, next week, I think things are going to warm up pretty significantly. So, but temperatures out west is definitely warming up across the lower high plains, southern high plains. That's warm across just the southern tier of the western and central U.S., but not that bad across the northern tier. So moving forward here and looking at the Storm Prediction Center outlook for tomorrow, for our Saturday, slight risk extending all the way up into Montana, going all the way down to the high plains into the central and southern sections of the high plains. Level 2 out of 5 risk of severe weather. Marginal risk is in the dark green. Level 1 out of 5. But once again, I want to reiterate, huge area of the country has at least a general risk of thunderstorms. That doesn't mean you have a lower risk of thunderstorms than this. It just means the severity of them probably won't pack as much of a punch and be there. So, tomorrow's threat, 2% risk across this region. Wind threat, 15% risk of damaging winds in the yellow. And the hail threat, 15% risk with a more, I would say, elevated risk of large hail in this area. Billings, down into the Bighorn Mountain region. I mean, some large hail is possible in this region. Now, we flip it back to this, and we take a look at day 3. Severe weather threat pretty much in the same areas, and then the risk of thunderstorms across the same areas, but just not as of now as high of a risk of severe weather. Now, we will take a look at, say, the excessive rainfall outlook, and we'll take a look at tomorrow. 15% risk of flash flooding occurring here and across portions of the upper southeast and mid-Atlantic. And then for Sunday, there is a higher risk of flash flooding kind of for the same areas that we're dealing with today and tomorrow. For Sunday, same region, 15% risk of flash flooding occurring across Virginia and West Virginia and areas of North Carolina. Now, moving past day 3, which is Sunday into Monday, we have 3 consecutive days that already have slight risk as we extend this past day 3. So this is Monday's outlook, and we have to look at the regular Storm Prediction Center outlook because they haven't made upgrades, I guess, yet on the weather-wise that I like to look at. But there's already a slight risk across areas of the Dakotas, basically the northern plains. Minneapolis, though, Aberdeen, down to Sioux Falls, Pierre, Valentine, Nebraska, 15% risk of severe weather for day 4. Now, there's going to be a large area of the country that runs a risk of thunderstorms. So this isn't going to be the only area to see thunderstorms. This is the only area, I would say this is the area of the country that has a higher risk of severe weather as of now. Then we go to day 5, which is for Tuesday next week. 15% risk of severe weather, basically a slight risk, level 2 out of 5, shifts into Nebraska, areas of Kansas, Colorado, and extreme western sections of Iowa. And then we go to day 6. This is next Wednesday. the higher risk of severe weather shifts into the Midwest. I mean, Milwaukee, Chicago, Peoria, Des Moines. You guys are Rockford. You guys are all included into this. 15% risk of severe weather. So an active stretch continues across the country. Day 7 doesn't have anything, but we could have severe weather certainly well into late next week. So the pattern looks active. Why is it active? Well, I will tell you there's 2 things to watch. One is going to produce the higher risk of severe weather. The other could produce severe weather, but it's more of just a heavy rain type deal. It's going to bring just daily risk of widespread storms and downpours. So we'll start off tomorrow around tomorrow afternoon. Okay. And I'm going to draw on this. The first thing I want to talk about is you see this thing right here. You see all these kind of lines are going like this, and then they dramatically dip down like this, and then kind of get zonal again. Same thing with this one. This thing's just kind of riding, then dips down like this and goes like that. That's what we call an upper trough. So an area of lower pressure. And this basically, in a nutshell, it brings a higher chance of showers and storms. Lower pressure brings a more sort of spiking, if you will, more elevated area of southwesterly flow. And this just brings a little bit of push in the atmosphere to go with what's already a very moist air mass. So what I'm trying to say is tomorrow we are going to get widespread showers and storms generated off this feature right here across a good chunk of the eastern U.S. The other thing that I'll speak on for tomorrow is this flow going across areas of the western U.S. It's going like this. And it kind of goes up into this region and then down to this region. So there is a severe weather threat for tomorrow that kind of does this number right here and goes all the way into this region right here. Now, I know the flow matching up with the severe weather risk area doesn't match up very well, but just remember there's a lot of moist air riding up and all the way up into this area. So portions of this is thermodynamic driven, especially the further south you get in this area. And then there's another area of this severe weather threat that is more so kinematic driven, which is probably going to be on this area. And the reason that is more kinematic driven, wind energy driven, is because more of your flow is up across this region. So what is the middle ground? The middle ground is your best overlapping conditions in a severe weather threat day of kinematics, wind energy, and thermodynamics, which is your fuel in the atmosphere, your CAPE levels, your surface temperatures, and your moisture. That normally is what you seek when you're trying to look for the higher tornado threat. And sure enough, the higher tornado threat is like literally right in the middle of that severe weather threat for tomorrow. A little bit of kinematic flow in the atmosphere, it ain't much, folks. I mean, I put my cursor over here, a little bit of wind shear, and more moisture. The further up you get in Montana, the less moisture at the surface you get. So just trying to explain the little things. And I made a tweet yesterday. I was like, my buddy Gerald, and he's right. This time of the year, there really isn't a whole lot to talk about. But what I like to do is I like to get overly detailed about the smaller features in the pattern. This helps me when breaking down bigger events, and that's why I've been doing it over the last couple of days. Gerald hit me up. He's like, dude, I don't know how you're talking 30, 35 minutes on the weather when there ain't really much going on. And I don't know how I am either, man. I just keep rambling and rambling. But, one thing is you'll match tomorrow up with moisture at the surface. And as you can tell, there is a kind of a slither of moisture that gets all the way up into Montana, into the Dakotas, dew points in the 60s and 70s, get pretty far up. So, we got flow kind of working in tandem, if you will. And this is allowing for flow to kind of spike up into the plains. So it's wild. You got a high pressure over here. You got high pressure over here. And so we're not going to get too much into the currents of why moisture is spiking up here, but I guess you can take my word for it. We got higher moisture at the surface spiking, and wind flow is overlapping over that moisture. And the reason I don't want to get too deep into that, because I'll start rambling and I'll start talking for about 50 minutes straight. So we'll save that for a better example and a better time. But a very moist air mass tomorrow afternoon and evening. And listen, that sticks around. But going back to the flow, and we look at Sunday here, right? Okay, so we get into Sunday afternoon. It looks about the same. The only thing that is leaving us finally is our little upper feature right into here. It's weakening and it's heading off this way, and it's finally going to get kind of wrapped up into the main flow of things, which is up here to the north. So this will continue, though, to bring widespread showers and storms for the southeast. Even though you don't really see much here, it's there. And you can see a little bit of flow scattered across the high plains, and that is why you have a marginal risk for Sunday. But your main flow certainly is riding way up here. Okay? And same thing, you look at the moisture. There's no point in getting super detailed about this. At the end of the day, the moisture isn't going anywhere. Big spike in dew points getting well into the 70s, all the way up into the upper Midwest. And just the only reason you're getting this little kind of indention of lower dew points right into here is because this upper trough, the flow behind this upper trough, the flow's going like this into this, like this. So it kind of yanks down a little bit of dry air temporarily. But eventually that moves on out the way, and say we get into Monday afternoon, and the atmosphere begins to recover, and you start to replace some of these dew points in the 60s back into the 70s across the Ohio Valley, things like that. But moisture's already rebuilding up into the plains and recovering like it normally does this time of the year. And, you take your flow, you get into Monday. Remember, we got that slight risk for Monday, and the ridge begins to break down. So what happens here is flow begins to sink southward, and what's likely going to happen is an area of lower pressure, an upper trough, is going to develop somewhere into here. And this is probably going to enhance our flow across a very moist air mass, and you'll be able to see it better as we're getting into Tuesday. And just take it all the way right here. It's kind of tough to see, but you got this zonal line right here, and it dips right here, and it kind of dips right here. Some sort of lower pressure is developing. This is going to enhance kind of the flow throughout this region, and that's why for Tuesday you got a higher severe weather threat into Nebraska and surrounding states. But as you start to get into Wednesday, okay, this is when this particular run of the Euro, and this is just one operational run, really has a digging trough. So this is a developing area of lower pressure in the pattern. This is really going to enhance the flow across this region, across a very moist air mass. So I could see next Wednesday, if what's showing up on the Euro being a higher severe weather threat day, maybe an enhanced risk day, I could definitely see that. And a lot of flow moving into the Pacific Northwest. We won't worry about that right now. But it's interesting. If you can see this, right? I'm going to take this off your screen. You see how it's kind of like a roller coaster, woo, and then it goes down and back up. If you match this up with high pressure and low pressure in the same time frame, I'm getting a little off track here. Okay, and we take this into Wednesday, and I'll watch my time here. Okay, we get into Monday, not a whole lot going on. Then you see all this orange kind of fades away really fast. That ridge breaks down, and then we boom get into Wednesday afternoon. You see this blue area? Makes sense. Okay, let's look at this. Let's match this up with the flow. Click on that. Click on that. You see how it's a roller coaster? Woo, down, up, down, then up. It makes sense. You look at the 500 millibar flow, same thing, right? So the flow kind of comes down off this side of the trough, then shoots back up. So the flow is going just like this, and then just like that across areas of the Midwest. So Chicago, Milwaukee, areas like that. Watch out Wednesday. Kind of trough develops in the pattern, and if you kind of keep this going, it's going to swing very quickly, it looks like. And this is probably going to bring unsettled weather across areas of the eastern U.S. I go to Gatlinburg the 18th through the 22nd. So I'm already watching this feature. It looks like it's just going to bring, unfortunately, some storms and stuff to my trip, and no doubt about it. And anytime I see this, I'm thinking showers and storms, but that's all right. It'll work out. I'm not worried about it. But the moist air mass, listen, is here to stay. I can talk about this until the cows come home. But the moist air mass is here to stay. I mean, I take it all the way into Wednesday next week. We go all the way into Thursday of next week. That upper trough could bring a quick cool down across the eastern U.S., but it's quickly replaced again with very moist air. So dew points in the 60s and 70s as far as the eye can see. But as far as what the surface looks like with this pattern, the reason you're going to have all this widespread thunderstorm activity for Saturday is because of that upper trough in the pattern, that area of lower pressure. This will bring another stormy day for Sunday across the eastern U.S., but as we're getting into Monday, we're still just going to get thunderstorms everywhere because daytime heat and humidity and stability. But then we're getting into, like I said, Monday afternoon, we start to get thunderstorms across this area up here. And then we get into Tuesday, widespread thunderstorms activity even across the eastern U.S., regardless of if there's a lot of flow or not, because just a very moist air mass. And then we get into Wednesday. You see that L that pops up on your screen? It's a 999 low. This starts to bring vigorous thunderstorm activity across the Midwest. And it makes sense. And certainly if you get into Thursday, if you get this strong of a low pressure in the pattern, this is going to bring widespread severe weather chances across the country throughout all next week. So we'll continue to watch that. Let's create a timestamp, and we'll do it here. Let's look at the heights right here. So we're going to do a quick Bible devotion for you folks, and then we'll head on out and enjoy the rest of our Friday. But this morning we're in Galatians chapter 5, verse 16 through 18. So let me find it here in my Bible. I like to read in my Bible, not the verse I wrote down on my notepad here. But it says, I say then, walk by the Spirit, and you will certainly not carry out the desire of the flesh. For the flesh desires what is against the Spirit, and the Spirit desires what is against the flesh. These are opposed to each other, so that you don't do what you want. But if you are led by the Spirit, you are not under the law. So I wrote down a couple things here. I said, rely on the guidance of the Holy Spirit. Let it lead you. When you do this, the battle versus the flesh is easier. And when I say that, it's easier. It doesn't make it. It doesn't suddenly all of a sudden there's not going to be any. There's not going to be any temptations to be worldly, right? It becomes easier though, and I'll touch more on that here in a second. The Holy Spirit will be felt more when you are actively doing things to strengthen your relationship with God. The battle against the flesh will always be there. And that's not saying that to be discouraging or anything like that, but I mean, it will. But what I'll say is this, guys, and obviously the obvious part of this scripture is walk by the Spirit, right? Listen to the Holy Spirit, walk with the Holy Spirit, and the likelihood of you being tempted by the flesh will be lowered. But I'll say this, guys, and I'm going to hit on this part that I said. The Holy Spirit will be felt more when you're actively doing things to strengthen your relationship with God. I think people miss that part a lot. And that's something that I've had to learn with my journey with building my relationship with God is, people can read that and it doesn't do a whole lot. And the reason I don't think it does a whole lot is because people aren't actively doing things to strengthen that relationship with God. And that means going to church, surrounding yourself around followers of Christ. That doesn't mean that you don't help people that aren't, but the people who aren't are going to watch. If they know you, they're going to watch you. They're going to watch your motives, watch what you do, see if you really follow what you speak on. Someone's always watching. I know I've said that numerous times on this channel. Someone is always watching you. So I believe that with everything that I got. So what my, I wouldn't say challenge, but I encourage you guys to really dig deep. And I do this every single day. And ask yourself, what am I doing to strengthen my relationship with God, with Christ? And, if you're not actively doing that, the temptations to do worldly things, the temptation of the flesh will creep in a lot more, and you will be weaker to it. You will be much weaker to it, I'm telling you. So actively do things, follow God's will in your life first, but actively do things that God wants you to do that's going to strengthen your relationship with Christ. A lot of people say, I don't have to go to church to be a Christian, to be a follower of Christ. I'm just gonna tell you straight up, because I'm always gonna be, and people are gonna disagree with this on the channel, but I keep it real here. I don't really agree with that. There's things obviously that hold people back from going to church. You need to watch it on maybe a YouTube live stream. Maybe you go to Bible studies, and that's awesome. That's great. And if that works out for you and your relationship is as strong as ever, hey, that is awesome. But I would encourage anyone, as this is what I'm trying to say, is if you don't have a church, don't give up. Don't give up on not trying to find one, because a lot of people do. And the reason they do is because maybe they had one bad encounter when visiting a church, one bad encounter. And I do believe that first encounter is huge. We definitely talk on that at my church, where, you never know. Like as a deacon, when I'm serving on deacon duty and I'm greeting people when they walk in the church on my morning to serve, it is huge for me to be very positive, to greet people, because you never know if you're talking to that person where it's their first time visiting. So I totally get that. I get that. But sometimes Satan has a funny way of working in and getting in your thoughts and telling you in a way where you don't have to do certain things. But you should always actively strengthen that relationship with Christ. And then the temptations of the flesh that will try to come at you, you'll be able to combat that a lot more. It's always going to be there, but you'll be stronger against it if you do things like that. I hope that helps. And that's all I got. Appreciate y'all. Y'all have a wonderful start to your weekend. God bless all y'all. Appreciate y'all. Love y'all. Thank you for everything. And we'll talk to you again tomorrow morning. God bless.